Let's get started. So last class we discussed about, you can see my screen, right?
Yeah. I mean, you have not shared anything so far.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So today we'll discuss on exception handling concept. That's a very, very important topic. Exception handling. Then we have 4 topics only left. Exception handling, file handling, string handling, collections. So these 4 also very, very important. Apart from all this, very important one is collections and then string handling. So these are very, very important. So let's get start with, so what is exception and how we can handle runtime exceptions. So that is the main agenda today's class. First, we'll cover the theory part, then we'll go with the this practical session. So how can we handle them? So exception means an unwanted, unexpected event that interrupts your program execution. So that's what a definition of an exception. So your entire program won't execute if that exception occurs. That means you cannot test your entire code. That's the problem. Then how can we handle that? So to handle that, we are going to use exception handling concept. It's one of the mechanism to handle the so these things one minute. Sorry, I was talking on mute. We were discussing about exception, right? Exception is something unwanted, unexpected event that occurs in the during program execution. Then your program will terminate there itself, and you can get a system related messages that doesn't help why that error has occurred, that exception has occurred. In order to handle that, so we are going to use exception handling mechanism to handle that exceptions. So exception handling is so which handles a runtime exceptions, which handles runtime exceptions. So that runtime exceptions, why it has occurred and what is the reason for that, and all those details you will get it. So that is the exception handling concept. So and so what is the error and no exception? So exception that you can handle it at runtime or compile time, whatever it is. But error you cannot handle, you cannot catch it. So that's the no error means some mistake in your code. When it comes to there is a mistake in your code that cannot be catched because you have to correct your code. So that is the error. And exception means so you can handle that. So that's what the difference between error and exception. So when why these exceptions occurs, what is the reason for them? So there is several reasons. So you are trying to open a non-existing file, then you will get a file not found exception. And there are some network connection problems. bad input data you are giving. All these reasons will cause the exceptions. So the hierarchy of exception classes is, so we have a throwable class, that's a root class, which is available in java.lang package. So built-in package is java.lang. The root class is a throwable class. The throwable class, so we have a exception and error. So exception again categorized into two. So again, runtime exceptions and compile time exceptions. So these compile time exceptions also called checked exceptions. Two types of exceptions you need to answer. What are the types of exceptions? If they ask you, two types of exceptions. One is checked exceptions, unchecked exceptions. What is meant by checked exceptions? So the classes which extends to throwable class other than runtime and error is called checked exception. That means other than means this one and this one you accept, and these only the extending to throwable class, right? So these are the compile time exceptions or checked exceptions. Checked exceptions occurs at compile time only. That means when you are writing a code, that time only you will get this checked exceptions. So checked exceptions are IO exception, SQL exception, class not found exception. So these are the main exceptions. And there are runtime exceptions. So runtime exceptions are unchecked exceptions. Unchecked exceptions occurs at runtime. So during program execution time, you will get them. So those are arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, number format exception, index out of bounds exception. So these are the different exceptions. And so when you will get index out of bounds, again, array index out of bounds exception, string index out of bounds exception, these are the different no exception classes. So that's what we discussed here. And let's see how to know why these exceptions occurs. These runtime exceptions, why you will get the reason for this arithmetic exception. Let's understand what is the reason for arithmetic exception. See, this is the parent. This parent is exception. Exception parent is throwable. The top exception class is throwable class. Above this, what is the parent of throwable? Object class. So for any class, the super class is object class. For all the Java classes, object is the super class. So did we discuss about object class?
No,
I
no,
think
Ramesh.
we have given object class and methods. No, if not, we will
No.
discuss. Yeah, so I remembered, I think we discussed, but yeah, if not, I will discuss. Okay, no problem. So object is the super class for all the Java classes. So object will act as a super class and also data type if you don't know any element data type. So suppose you don't know the data type of any entity, the default data type for the objects or anything is object. Object is the default data type. So that's the object, and object class we have lot of so methods like clone method, notify method, notify all method. This is the clone will copy the object. Exact copy will be created. That object will be created again for you. Notify is a single thread will wake up. Notify all multiple threads will be wake up. And so we have equals method. So equals method is very important. Equals method will be used to compare any objects, any two objects you can compare. So that's object comparison you can do with the equals method. So then we have another method, hash code method. So you want to get the hash code value of your object, then you will call hash code. Hash code value means what? your memory address of that object, right? So that is a hash code. So whenever you want to get a hash code value of any object, you will use a hash code method. And toString method, you want to convert object into string format, then you will use a toString method. Yeah, these are the very important methods. Please remember them. And there is one more finalize method. So we discussed a final keyword, right? And so we need to discuss a finalize method. Finalize is a method in object class which is used to initialize the garbage collection, because it will finalize which object has to be cleaned up by the garbage collector. So basically garbage collector will call this finalize method and takes help. Okay, which objects needs to be cleared first. So that is the both communication will happen, this garbage collector and that finalize method. So while cleaning up the objects, the finalize method will be called by the garbage collector. So that's a finalize method. So I have given about final keyword, finalize method. Now today one more keyword, it will come similar kind of keyword, finally block. So that we'll discuss in this exception handling. So let's go and discuss about this arithmetic exception and so why you will get. What is the reason for arithmetic exception? So arithmetic exception, so you will get when you are dividing a number by 0, so there occurs an arithmetic exception. So when you are dividing a number by 0, you will get an arithmetic exception. So like this, any number divided by 0, you will get an arithmetic exception. So we should not divide a number with a 0. And null pointer exception. When you will get a null pointer exception, your object variable, any variable value you declare null. Initially, you will declare a null default value. For a string, so object, you can declare null. Later, while using time, make sure you give the value, not null. So your null means nothing is there in that variable, right? Now, if you want to access any method with that variable object reference, and if the variable has a null value, that time you will get a null pointer exception. So that means while using the variable, make sure you don't have a null value in the variable, in this variable. See, I'm calling here the method. On this null variable, I'm calling the method. So that's why this will throw for you a null pointer exception. This will throw for you a null pointer exception. So third one. So a scenario where number format exception occurs. Scenario where number format exception occurs. So the wrong formatting of any value may occur number format exception. So that's the number format exception means. So you are in this variable, you have a string data. Alphanumeric, alphabets, right? All are alphabets. If you are trying to convert them into integer format, then that's a wrong formatting, right? Alphabets you cannot convert into integer. So that time you will get a number format exception. So when it is possible, when you can convert into primitive data, this object into primitive, that is possible when there is a numbers in string format. So when there are numbers in the string format, you can, so you can convert. See now here, alphabets are there. So now this is the wrong format conversion. Basically this integer is a wrapper class. So wrapper classes are, again, I need to explain wrapper classes. I hope in the initially I have given. Wrapper classes purpose is to convert the primitive into objects, object into primitive format. That purpose you will use the wrapper classes. Primitive data you can convert into object format. Suppose you need a numbers in the object format. So that time you have to use a primitive, no, every primitive data type has a wrapper class. So like a Boolean wrapper class is there. Let me write that chart. So I hope I have given that chart in the initial classes. I don't know whether you remembered or not. So this is the primitive, okay? Primitive data. 8 primitive data types we have, right? 8 primitive data types. So these are the wrapper classes. Okay. So here, if it is a Boolean, suppose you have a wrapper class Boolean. Like this one. Okay, so quickly we can finish. Okay. So char, what is the wrapper class? Character. Okay. Then we have a int,
Integer.
integer, and a long,
Capital L.
capital L. That's what. So there is a byte and a capital byte. And we have a short.
Yes,
So
capital.
same, yes, capital. And what else pending? Float, right? Float. 8 wrapper classes has 8. So primitive data types has 8 wrapper classes.
Boolean.
Double. Boolean is in the top we mentioned. Otherwise, we'll mention Boolean also. Okay. Boolean. Okay. So when you want to convert this primitive into object format, so you will use this, not this one. There is a direct method. You can create a character C equal to the value, primitive data. But if you want to convert object, these are objects, right? The object into primitive format. Now this is the one. See, I'm converting this string data into primitive format. So that you can use integer dot parseInt and string value. So now it will convert to integer primitive. If you want, for example, double data, you use a double dot parse double, and you will get a return double primitive. So that conversion, if you want to do, these wrapper classes are used. So there is a boxing and unboxing. Boxing means converting the primitive into object is called boxing. And there is a one more, converting objects into primitive. Now this one. This is one, right? So this part. Now this is the object, right? This is the object. String object you're converting into primitive format. That is called unboxing. Okay, clear? Unboxing and unboxing. So these are important. Please so get some idea on this. So we have a wrapper classes concept. Please go through that. You will get a better idea. So now that wrong formatting we are doing here, that's why you'll get a number format exception here. Next, so you know array index out of bounds exception, why you will get. So you will get array index out of bounds exception when the wrong place, wrong index, you are inserting an element, you will get a array index out of bounds exception. And also you will access when there are no elements in the array or more than the array size. that time also you will get a array index out of bounds exception. So there is a try catch blocks. So how, then okay, these we have seen, right? Why you are getting, if you know these reasons, you can handle them easily. If you don't know the reason, and you won't understand, right? Why this arithmetic you are getting, why null pointer exception you are getting, why number formatting. If you know the reason, then you can handle easily. That's why knowing the reason for exception is very important. Then how can you handle all these exceptions? So we have a try, catch, finally, throw, and throws. These are the 5 keywords you will use to do this exception handling. So you can do this exception handling with this try, catch, finally blocks. Okay. So that's a Java try catch block. So the Java try block is, so you can include the which line of code is giving an exception. That block of code you can put in the try block. So if the line is not throwing exception, keep it outside the try catch block. Keep it outside the try catch block. So in the catch block, what it will do is when there is an exception in the try block, then catch block will execute. So in the catch block, you have to write, okay, what kind of exception? The exception class types we discussed, that class name and the reference object. Then you can write here e.print stack trace method. So what is the reason for this exception? This print stack trace method will print for you in the logs. That is the purpose of print stack trace, get message, all these methods will be there. So we can use in the catch block. So when catch block will execute, when there is an exception in the try block. Then what will happen if there is no exception in the try block? So catch block won't execute. So the try block is successful. Will catch block will execute? No. So only when there is an exception here in the try block, then only catch block will be called. So for example, there are 4 lines. Second line you got an exception. Third and fourth won't execute. The rest of the lines it will skip. And immediately from there, cursor will move to catch block. That's the try catch, how it will execute. There is a try finally block also. Finally block. So this will always executes this code. Even there is an exception in the try block or there is no exception in the try block, directly the finally after try block, finally block will execute. Or you can write all 3, try, catch, finally also. But finally block always executes. So when you can use finally block? If you want to execute any important code, you want to execute that code at any cost. So whatever it happens in the try block or whatever it happens, but you want to execute that code always. And then you can use a try finally block, like, basically database connection closing, because you created object, you want to clean up that, or file streams closing, input output stream closing. Then you can use a finally block inside that close method you will use to close it. So that's the try catch finally. So try block is when you can use. Try block is used to enclose the code that might throw an exception. So it must be used within the method. All these 3 will use in the method inside only. If an exception occurs at a particular statement of the try block, the rest of the code will not execute. So in the try block, rest of the code we need to execute. Just now I have given, right, 4 lines of code. Second line you got an exception. Third, fourth won't execute. It will skip and it will jump cursor to catch block. So that is the Java try block, catch block, how it will execute. So it is recommended not to keep the code in the try block. That will not throw an exception. So if that line is not throwing an exception, put it outside. So that's the try catch blocks. Try finally block. Try finally block. So try finally block is basically so it is a always the code you want to execute you can use. Catch block, Java catch block is used to handle the exception by declaring the type of exception within the parameter. So the declared exception must be the parent class exception. Like I have given a hierarchy, right? That's also an interview question, hierarchy of your exception classes. And so when there is an exception here, the catch block will execute. So there is a single try block, multi-catch blocks also you can write. First parent, child, then one more child, then finally parent exception class. That's how you can use